Hi, how are you? Welcome to the Etiquette e Protocolo channel. I'm Juliana Santiago, and in today's video, we're going to talk a little more about cutlery. If you've been following my work for a while, you know that one of the things I'm passionate about and specialize in is table setting. This whole world of developing and creating table settings is something that fascinates me. We even have a course at the Institute of Etiquette and Protocol called The Art of Table Setting, which is one of the most successful courses at our school, and it's all about developing and creating table settings. I'll leave the link below so you can check out this training. And then a lot of people have questions about cutlery, how to use it, forks, knives, which model they need to have, and which ones are interesting to have at home. Nowadays, we have several types of cutlery and different cutlery sets available on the market. So today I brought a huge selection with a variety from my collection to show you, so you really won't have any more doubts and can rock it when setting your tables and understand a little more about the world of cutlery. The first thing you need to consider is that there are several cutlery sets that we find on the market. So in the market, we have everything from more traditional cutlery sets, like these sets here, sometimes made of stainless steel or even silver, and they don't have any details. Or sometimes they might even have some finishing here at the tip. They can be a little wider, but usually they are more classic models, like this one I brought to show you. However, with the rise of table setting, the development and creation, and the need to bring more creative pieces to table compositions, the market has been investing a lot in cutlery sets with different designs. So nowadays, it's very common to find other models in stores, and we've even brought a few here to be able to show you. These are the mother of pearl models. There are these bamboo models. There's the model with natural bamboo, but mine here is actually with fake bamboo. There are these black models, colorful ones. There are cutlery sets in all colors. Nowadays, there are even thinner, more modern models, and I'll leave a photo here for you, which are also very trendy and really popular these days. I don't have it in my collection, but it's also a model that we see a lot in stores today, because this more modern style has also become very popular with people. So, to make the tables more creative, we often end up using this type. I'll leave the link in the description. If you're starting your household starter set, if you want to start your selection of cutlery, it's a good idea to think about having at least a set like this. A more basic one, because it ends up matching all kinds of table decorations and arrangements, and it's also going to be a slightly more sophisticated, more elegant model. This cutlery set I brought here for you is a very classic one of the most complete we have on the market today, and it has not only the serving fork but also the dessert fork. This dessert fork actually can be used in many different ways, not just for serving dessert, but it can also be used at a breakfast table or even to eat an appetizer, a snack, a salad, something like that. We have the fish fork, and you can see that the cutlery set is the same because they have the same design, the same composition. And with fish cutlery, a lot of people are unsure about how to identify them. Usually, this type of cutlery has some kind of identification that's different from the other forks. It's also a fork that's a little smaller than the serving fork. You don't necessarily need to have fish cutlery in your set. If you're just starting your collection, starting your purchases, it's not an essential item. But if you have the habit and enjoy eating fish and steaks, then it might be something interesting. Because usually when we have the fish fork in the cutlery set, we also have the fish knife. It's this kind of knife. It doesn't have a pointed tip or a sharp edge. It just has a split tip. And this type of knife is used to separate fillets, to remove possible bones or even the skin from your fish. In this more complete cutlery set, we also have the serving knife and the dessert knife. So it's a very complete cutlery set. Cutlery sets like these more unique models, like this bamboo one, this mother of pearl one, or this black one I brought here to show you, usually don't have all the utensils. So Sometimes you can't find this type of cutlery with a dessert fork and knife, which makes it harder to set up a traditional table, a formal table, or even a semi-formal table. It's important for you to pay attention to that. I really like to use these different cutlery sets in more informal table settings when I want to add some creativity to my table setting. But when I really need to create a more traditional setting, more in line with etiquette rules and protocols, I choose that other cutlery set I showed you, the stainless steel one with a more classic arrangement. In the cutlery sets, we also have the section for spoons. In this more complete set that I brought to show you, this one is the soup spoon. We also have the dessert spoon. We have a teaspoon, which we use with the teacup, right, placed on the saucer. And we have the coffee spoon, that little spoon for coffee, for that slightly smaller coffee cup. So this is the selection of spoons. So this silverware set that I brought for you is a stainless steel set, and it's a very complete set, one of the most complete ones you can find on the market today. There are indeed other models of spoons, other models of knives, other models of forks. There are other options. In fact, on the Kit Protocolo Instagram, Etiquette Protocolo, I'm always showing you different models. However, these are the most conventional models. These are the most traditional models that we even find for sale. Some of the more unique models of forks, knives, and spoons nowadays are hard to find on the market, or we have to buy them separately. For example, a bread knife, for instance. We will need to buy a separate set that comes with this type of knife. Unfortunately, the most complete cutlery set we have today will include the items I showed you, and if you need to buy something more specific, you'll really have to buy it separately. Yeah, that happens nowadays because the brands, also due to pricing adjustments, the items themselves, and also because of consumer demand. Nowadays, people also don't have much space to store things. Yeah, too many pieces, too many items. They ended up noticing what was used the most and what was most essential for setting the tables. And they end up offering cutlery sets with this mix of pieces nowadays in the market as the most complete option. But like I said, if you want to buy, for example, an oyster fork, then you go and buy it separately. The bread knife is the same thing, and so on. We also have these creative cutlery sets on the market today that we see a lot out there, and I really like them. For example, what I brought here for you is this pizza cutlery set. I really like it. It's very informal. So it's not the kind of cutlery set you'll see or find in a more formal and sophisticated table setting, but it does have a fork that makes eating pizza easier. Of course, we can eat pizza either with our hands or with cutlery. It depends on the situation in which the pizza is served to us. But in the case of eating pizza with cutlery, which is already a more informal food, we have this type of cutlery that I think is super fun and I really like it. Mainly because the knife has a serrated edge, it's a bit sharper, and that makes it easier when cutting the pizzas. Since pizza is generally a more informal food, this type of cutlery isn't found in a very formal setting. But for a creative theme table, which I really like, I love creating theme table settings, but it's not the kind of cutlery like this one here, which is more traditional and ends up fitting into other types of decor. Because this cutlery here, I could use it to serve pizza, but I could also use it in other situations. So it ends up being versatile. That's usually my suggestion for those who are just starting out and want to make this kind of purchase, who want to have this type of accessory and a more complete set. We also have specific cutlery sets for certain occasions, like the pizza one. I brought this one here, which is a barbecue cutlery set, to show you. This one is a fork, and this is a knife that's made for us to eat steak, you know, that thicker cut of meat, right? Like bife ancho, or food in that style, like bife de chorizo, which we can see is also very specific. It already has the serrated edge, the tip, everything to make cutting easier, right? And now you might ask me, Juliana, do I need to have all these types? Do I have these types at home? Can I mix different types of cutlery sets too? Can I take, for example, this cutlery set here and use it with this mother of pearl cutlery set here? How can this actually work in practice when I'm setting my table? And what do I really need to invest in? Well, if you really want to invest, I recommend choosing a complete cutlery set that will have all those forks, knives, and spoons I've already shown you, right? If possible, and if you want and like it, you can even choose a cutlery set that includes the fish fork and knife. But if you think this kind of investment doesn't make sense for you right now, there are other types of cutlery sets that don't include the fish fork and fish knife. And then you can choose a 101-piece cutlery set, which is a slightly smaller version, okay? But it's also the same style, and there are other beautiful models on the market too. It just doesn't come with the fish fork and fish knife in case that doesn't make sense for you. But you might be wondering, because sometimes you already have a cutlery set at home and you want to mix this more traditional type of cutlery with a more detailed set with some kind of design. This kind of mix isn't wrong, but it does need to be done with some care. Because imagine if you use, for example, a very colorful placemat, a very colorful plate, a very colorful glass, and then you go and mix the cutlery. It can end up looking too busy and make it seem like you didn't really have the right pieces and just tried to improvise. However, if you choose a more classic decoration, a more neutral one with more white tones, and leave the cutlery mixed, it might not draw so much attention. So it really depends on the context in which you want to make this kind of mix, because it can look over the top. It might look like you're just putting the cutlery together randomly, and in a situation that doesn't make much sense, it can also look really beautiful to mix the cutlery, very elegant actually. We have tables from all over the world, tables at the White House, tables at Buckingham Palace, Queen Elizabeth's tables. They use mixed cutlery, but as we can see, these combinations are done in a more subtle way, right? They are done in a more discreet way. And what about the decoration? We notice that it's a more neutral, more classic decoration, and the mix of cutlery doesn't draw much attention. If we set a table with many elements and lots of decorative arrangements, like the ones we like and usually do. So it's important for us to see if this will look pleasing to the eye or not, okay? And then you adjust as you go, and you'll definitely turn your table into a beautiful and very complete one with all the utensils you'll need. And there's another point I want to make here. It's important and it's worth mentioning that you might wonder why you need to have so many forks and knives at home, right? If there's only one meal and I'm just going to use a fork and a knife. Usually in more formal situations, dinners, parties, and events, we're usually given a fork and a knife to eat the dish in question, most of the time. So it's important for us to pay attention to the utensils we have, for example. It could also be the case that you have a spoon to eat a specific dish, so each dish will use the necessary utensils for that moment. So unfortunately, in a more formal situation, sometimes in a restaurant or even at a party, you won't be able to go through the whole process using the same utensils. And also so you don't mix the flavors, right? Not mix them. There you have the experience with that dish in a more individualized way. Each dish that is served comes with its own utensil. Now, of course, if you're at home in your everyday life, then it's not a problem. You can use a fork and a knife to eat everything. But I think it's interesting for you to understand why sometimes there are so many knives and so many forks presented at the same table, right? Can that make us confused? Even if you want to eat your whole meal with just one fork and one knife? It's important for you to understand and interpret that situation, because when you go to a restaurant or even to someone's house and when the presentation is like that, you'll already know and you'll do well, you'll understand the whole dynamic and why it's presented that way. Now, I'd like to invite you, do you like a set table? Do you want to understand more about how to set a table? I made a tutorial about table setting here for the Etiquette and Protocol channel, and I'll leave it here on the side for you to watch and check out this content I've been teaching, which I think you'll really enjoy. Remember that below you can find all the information about our course, A Arte da Mesa Posta, where I cover all this and much more about table setting. If you've watched this video up to this point, you really need to check out this training. So that's it. See you in the next video, and I'll be waiting for you here on the Etiquette y Protocolo channel. Thank you so much.